Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. December 10th is our date. Pete Belcastro, one of the real estate guys with you here today. And thanks for joining us on KMED. And happy holidays to you all across KMED land at 1440 and FM 106.7. I'm a real estate broker with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And we get together with you once a week here on KMED we'll talk about all sorts of real estate related issues and topics. And as we say, through 7.5 years and 360 some shows, well, we've never run out of things to talk about. And again, today, the same thing is going to hold true because we got a topic that we can talk about this for hours here today, and that's about appraisals, appraising, residential and commercial appraisals going on in Jackson and Josephine County and what's going on with them because it's taken up a lot of time and holding up the process. Here to talk about it today is Trevor Boucher, who's a real estate broker with John L. Scott and here in Medford, and nice to have you here. Trevor's been on our show before, and how are you doing, by the way, here? Merry Christmas to you and all that.
Well, thank you, Pete. Merry Christmas to you, too, and thank you for having me back.
Yeah, so how is the market going? How are you doing? Last time we talked to you, which was a few months ago now, you were pretty busy. That's still happening in your world.
Well, still very busy. There's typically normally a slowdown this time of year, but something that I'm not experiencing. My wife and I are still very busy.
That's right. Well, I think that's everybody. Even though we always talk about it's a good time to sell in the winter time, and it's winter right now, isn't it? But there's a lot of stuff going on, right? I mean, it's amazing. You get more for it, right? I mean, there's stats out there that prove that.
Yeah, there are several good reasons to list in the winter. There's going to be fewer showings. There's less buyers out there, but the buyers that are out there are very serious. There's going to be less competition.
Yeah.
A lot of people have the mindset that they want to wait till the spring. So suddenly in the spring, there's a flood of inventory. And so just a lot more competition. And
just think of this, though, Trevor, also that the available listings in Jackson County, anyway, from a year ago are down another 16%. So that's what's making the market the way it is, which is a seller's market because there's simply so few listings and there's more buyers than listings.
It is a seller's market.
Amazing.
And I think what I've told you before is 6 months seems to be the tipping point. Once you have more than 6 months supply, it's pretty much a buyer's market.
Yeah.
And then less than 6 months supply, it's a seller's market. And so I think overall...
Where are we at here? Yeah.
Well, by price band... 350 and less, we're at less than a month's supply.
You're talking about $350,000 property or less.
Correct. Yes.
There is less than a what?
Less than a month's supply. And what that means is if all the homes that are on the market that in that price range, $350,000 and less, if people stopped putting them on the market today, it would only take less than a month for them all to be sold.
Yeah. So I mean, that's this is a supply and demand market, and we're certainly seeing that, and that's what's going on. So waiting until the spring may not be the smartest move. Again, one of our goals here always we want you to be a smart real estate consumer, and that's really true. One that might be smarter to do it now than wait, just because of the statistics that we show. Also here in the house today at KMED is Mark Baird, who's been an appraiser in the Rogue Valley for 27 years. Mark's a Medford guy. I didn't know that. That's always glad to have you here. So, I mean, you look at the market from a different point of view as an appraiser, but do you see it as busy as the way Trevor and myself and other brokers are experiencing the market right now?
I would presume that the appraisers are seeing it even busier than that.
Well, they probably could. Well, anyway, we'll see what's going on with it in this time of the year. All right. People looking. I always get a kick out of the, I guess let's talk, before we go further, the only thing that draws a red flag to me, all right, Trevor, try to explain this again, is the valuation that we see increase, Mark and Trevor. It's double digits this year, from last year, 11% increase.
Yeah, 11% for Jackson County.
Rural properties a little bit higher, 13% increase in rural properties around. That's double digits, and you look at that as both, a good and bad sign. Tell me what you think of that.
Well, it is appreciating quickly. I still feel more comfortable about what it's doing this time around than what it did in 2005 and 2006. The main reason for that is something we had talked about here just a minute ago, Pete, is the restrictions on the lending industry. This time around, you're not having banks and mortgage institutions giving loans to people who really have no business getting loans. It's very restrictive and tight. So I think also what's kind of pushing this appreciation is obviously the lack of inventory, but just the amount of people relocating here. And, the sad thing about it is there's a lot of local people here because of this appreciation, people who have grown up here and have been here a long time that are starting to get priced out of the market.
That's what's going to happen with this. Mark Baird, when you were appraising, what were the value, was the way I understand it, and I wasn't a broker leading up to this, so what were values climbing in Jackson County prior to the Great Recession? Do you remember that?
Yeah, when you went overall, we had probably an average of 7 to 8% per year because Medford has always been in a growth attitude and been very willing to take on the California immigrants and other immigrants from other states. Our economy tends to work with that quite a bit. If we're not in a growth economy in the Medford area with regard to real estate, our economy is hurting because we don't produce anything much here.
That's really true. No, we don't, and it is when the real estate market is healthy, as big as it is. And that's one of the things I think our listeners have simply come to appreciate over the years is how all-encompassing the word real estate covers and its effect on the economy. I think is certainly understated because it is huge, as you say. But can we maintain, fellas? The question here is, how long can we maintain? Are we going to continue to get double-digit increases? I guess that's the question that really nobody knows, because that seems to be you can't sustain that. I don't think I don't know how long you can sustain that, right? But if you're an investor right now, look, you're appreciating your home value. It's a good thing,
right? I think the answer to that question goes back to just the simple law of supply and demand. Yeah. And as long as people are moving here and there's the demand for housing, and the building just isn't keeping up with the amount of people moving here, we're going to be in this scenario.
Now, I know you've had some developments that you're working on, Trevor. One is Innsbrook Ridge, I know, on the east side, and another one on the west side. I can't remember the name of that one.
Anjou the Pair.
You talk about shortage of housing. Are you selling those lots? Are people buying them? Are you seeing some construction coming on those two examples?
We are. In Innsbrook Ridge, it's a 60-lot subdivision. We now have 11 homes either sold or under contract to be built. Out of 60.
So it's about 20%. Okay.
Yeah, just under 20%.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Okay. So
it is good. And then Anjou View, that one's moving at a little bit slower pace. It's taking a little bit longer to get up and running. And but the ones that we have listed, we've had a lot of activity. We sold a couple, had a lot of activity on the ones that are listed. But to kind of streamline our process, we're not wanting to put them on the market too soon. It's kind of
fast.
Right.
Yeah, too fast. Right. Yeah. No, sure, absolutely. You don't want to do that as you go along. Okay, well, here we are at this point of the year. Mark, we're having a real problem with appraisals. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Rick Harris, who's the president of the SOMLS, was here a few months ago and told us that we should extend our closing dates for clients, really from 60 days, he said, almost to 90 days. And you say, well, why? And he says, appraisals. We can't get appraisers. We can't get appraisals done within this time frame, so you better extend them out. Is that accurate, Trevor? Tell me, is that what? Right?
I cannot remember the last time I did a transaction here recently that I haven't had an issue getting the appraisal done in a timely manner and closing within the contract date. It's
really?
having to do extensions on a regular basis. And initially, we're writing those contracts to be a 45-day escrow, thinking that would be long enough.
And 45 days used to be long enough, or 30 days used to be long enough. But now We're talking 60 and extended out now, right?
Correct, yes.
Wow, and it's about appraisals, right?
Right, just the shortage of appraisers and the workload that the existing appraisers here are having to do. It's not a good recipe for success.
So when you want to blame somebody, we can blame Mark Baird here for all of the problems that are going on in transactions right now. Is that a? No, I don't want. I'm just
yes,
kidding you
that
there.
and global warming. Yes,
dadgummit, Mark.
Yeah. Well, okay, I won't blame you for that.
Okay.
But tell us the story of what's happening with appraisals, and why is it taking so long? It didn't used to take this long. There's not that much more transactions happening, but so what's happening out there, Mark?
Well, the appraisers were slow for a long time. And so if you went back a year or two ago where they were just plugging along at a moderate pace and the attrition in the market has taken numbers down, and we are not filling with trainees fast enough to keep up with the increased demand for appraisals.
So while the demand for real estate is going up, the demand for appraisers is going up, but the supply of appraisers is actually dropping, you're saying?
Actually, the number across the state's kind of holding steady.
Okay.
But the rural areas have been hit real hard. It appears that a lot of the appraisers migrate to the higher population areas.
There's probably more work there.
There's I did a little survey to find out what we had. We have 64, according to the state, in Jackson County, 24 or so in Josephine County, and 14 in Klamath County. Right. Those are appraisers, both commercial and residential.
That's right around 100, if I was counting you right there, 100.
Yes.
For this whole, for these three counties, and they extend out. How many did it used to have? I mean, I'm curious as to, do you know what that might have been before? Is it?
I think that number's been pretty steady.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Then it's just the demand. Is it just the demand on properties, or
more activity overall?
Why? Yeah. Why would it do that?
Well, what we forget when we're talking to realtors is the realtors are pushing the sales out, and they're thinking, "Gosh, this is great. We got sales going out." But the other thing that's going on is we've got all of these refinances that are going on, and more than half of the business is refinance. And the political climate made people think that interest rates might go up, and so those people jumped in and really, in my opinion, have pushed something forward that could be a little more temporary than everybody is worried about.
Okay, well, that's okay. All right, that's good to know. Biggest thing, I suppose, is how'd you say that again? Give it to me again.
Well, that we need to remember that the appraisers have a private area that they work in, like I do. I do almost all my work in private work, and like estates and things like that. That
someone hires you individually, correct?
Yeah, like attorneys or the individuals of the estates or accountants.
But most, Trevor Boucher, tell me, appraisers, the bank assigns them, correct, on a loan?
Correct, yeah.
Right? And what, they come from a pool, or tell me how that works?
Well, I think Mark would probably be better qualified to answer that question.
Yeah. Well, what has happened is most all of the business has migrated into what we call appraisal management companies.
Okay.
And so
appraisal management companies.
And
okay.
we
sounds
end up
bad already, doesn't it? Yes. It just sounds bad. Okay.
So we end up with people that might be based in Portland trying to place appraisals in Medford or Klamath Falls or Grants Pass, and they're in a very metropolitan area, and they just don't quite understand the nuances and the difficulties. Additionally, many of the appraisal management companies are located back east, like in Pennsylvania. And so we have people back in Pennsylvania trying to order appraisals on, let's just say it might be a 15-acre hobby farm out in Talent, and they haven't got a clue as to what they're ordering.
And why would the banks do that? Because it seems like, wouldn't the banks want local people with the knowledge of that versus somebody from outside the area to make an appraisal?
I think it's all got to do with being cost effective and reducing their liability by making it appear to be a true third party with that appraisal management company doing the ordering and doing the qualitative review, or the quality control review portion of the appraisal when it comes back. And one of the other things that happens is sometimes these appraisals get sent back 3 and 4 times, and that's a nightmare to you realtors, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
And I don't know whether you even hear about it, but quite oftentimes the complaints from the appraisers is that they'll get a reviewer, and the reviewer will go through the appraisal until they find a few things, and then they'll send it back to the appraiser. And then it comes back again, and then they read some more, and then they find more problems with the appraisal. And so the appraisers are going, why can't the quality review people at the appraisal management companies take care of this all at once?
And the answer is that you don't know. So this whole thing came from the banks wanting to streamline the appraisal process. So you in the old days, the bank would call you, right, and you would go do an appraisal.
Yes.
And now that doesn't happen. It goes through these management companies, appraisal management companies.
Yeah, appraisal regulation had a different environment come into play.
And do appraisers have to do that in order to keep working? I mean, I know you're doing it independently, but you've been at it a long time and you've got a good business going. But so are most of the other appraisals, the 64 in Jackson County, for example, are they part of those groups, most of them then?
Yeah, I went out and surveyed 6 people within our area who I thought were really full-time appraisers. And I got some interesting statistics from them. This year, they're typically doing probably almost double what they would do in a normal year.
You're that busy.
Yes. And 70 to 80 hours a week of work.
Yeah.
And it's just phenomenal how much hard work and overtime they have to put in to keep up with everything.
Very interesting.
It really is. We're talking with Mark Baird and Trevor Boucher here on the Real Estate Show about appraising and the real estate market in general. Here on the John L. Scott Market Watch Show on the Real Estate Show. We're coming right back to KMED right after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. December the 10th is our date. Happy holidays to you all. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season and do something nice for somebody. It will make you feel a lot better, though. Makes what the holidays are about, right? And lots of people are doing that all over Jackson, Josephine County. You see it everywhere. It's really cool to watch all of that. Today here on the show, Trevor Boucher from John L. Scott is here. He's a real estate broker, along with Mark Baird, who's an appraiser, 27-year appraiser from Medford here. And we're talking appraisals. Trevor, we were saying during that break, it's really interesting to hear the perspective of Mark, isn't it?
It is.
To hear his side
very
of that.
interesting to get the actual appraiser's perspective versus the realtor's perspective. Very interesting.
So while we're whining and crying as brokers, because we're a little bit behind in trying to get appraisals, Mark is saying that it's really he feels it's a temporary thing because it's so busy that it'll slow back down again. And I appreciate that. I think that's valid too, right?
Well, it's possible that it won't slow down again. That we are experiencing growth, and the number of transactions that's being done could become the norm, and we could even have more growth than what we're having now.
Yeah. Now, if you're in Klamath County, you're going to wait 4 months, according to Mark, for an appraisal. Boy, that's a long time to wait to have a house pending, isn't it? I mean, that's torture for buyers and sellers. My goodness. Anyway, Mark, it's true. I mean, what you're saying, it's fascinating.
Well,
sure.
I think there needs to be a little bit of an explanation because when I say that I think it's going to be kind of a temporary shortage that we've got is that you need to recognize the long-term runs of what goes on because a couple of years ago, people were so hungry that they were going out of business as appraisers.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the same with real estate agents as well.
Real estate agents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And real estate agents might be able to get into the business a little faster than an appraisal could.
Well, that's a very good point. What exactly is required to become an appraiser?
Okay. Yeah,
there's 3 licensing categories in the state of Oregon, and they are the state licensed appraiser, the state certified residential appraiser, and the state certified general appraiser. The top category, the state certified general, does the unique properties like farms, ranches, timberlands, subdivision developments, things like that.
And is that the hardest one to get?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And that's what you do. Okay. All right.
But I think the biggest focus for the people that are listening to the show is probably on the residential.
Sure.
And most of the lenders require the people have the license category that is state certified residential appraiser. And with regard to the state certified residential appraiser, the first requirement that they have is they have to have a bachelor's degree.
Boy, that eliminates a lot of people. Okay, I hear this a lot. Okay, what else? Bachelor's degree, that eliminates a lot of people because of.
And then they have to.
The state requires this.
Well, it's promulgated down from the federal government to the state. The state has to meet the federal requirements at a minimum, and we can add to that.
All right.
And so then they have to take the equivalent of about 300 hours of courses.
Okay, 300 hours of courses.
No, let me make sure I got that right.
Boy, real estate, you don't have to take that many, I'll tell you that. You have to just take your real estate exam, like 120 questions.
Yeah.
Not 300 hours of, oh my goodness.
And then they also need to make sure that that they've got a good background. If they get fingerprinted and background checked through
And
the
don't you have
state
to,
and
don't you have
everything.
to apprentice with another appraiser too?
Absolutely.
And when was the last time you had an apprentice with you?
The last time I had an apprentice was 10 years ago.
See, that is
Now the question is why?
I was going to say, why is that?
Well, all of the lenders and the governmental regulatory agencies are saying, "Gosh, we need to get more appraiser assistants in here, trainees," and we as appraisers look out and we say, if it's not profitable to us, we're not going to do it. And so if we're not leveraging our money by getting somebody that we're training, because it gets quite complex as to what we do.
And how many hours does a person have to be an apprentice with you?
Well, with regard to the category that we're talking about, it has to be 2,500 hours of qualifying experience in no less than 24 months.
2,500 hours of that, 300 hours of that. Do you see
and
why?
A bachelor's degree.
And a bachelor's
degree.
Do you see why they're not?
So,
being
Mark,
filled?
do you pay your apprentice?
Well, of course you must, and
you have to. Okay. All
yes.
right. Oh, I see. Okay.
And because under the apprenticeship program, they fall in as an employee because they have to be under your direct supervision, so they can't be an independent contractor.
Boy, the rules have made this is government kind of run amok sometimes because you make the rules so difficult, and now it's caught up with this whole thing. And a lot of you guys and gals who are appraisers are the average age of a real estate broker is a 57-year-old white woman. So I don't know what the average deal of the appraiser is, but I'm sure it's up there as well.
Well, the 6 people that I went through, 61.
So the average age is 61.
Yeah. And when we look at it nationally, we tend to say something more like 56.
Do you know of any young appraisers in this valley out of the 64 that are here, the 24 in Joe County? Do you know, are any of them younger people, or are they all, have any of them new, or are any of them new?
Some of them are younger. The interesting thing about the Rogue Valley is we don't have a lot of people that we don't have a lot of impetus to want to train other people because we train our competition in. But what we get is
do you see the catch?
It's
Trevor,
the perfect storm for where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But what we do get is we get people that want to move from Portland and from other metropolitan areas into our area,
here.
and they find a real nice niche, and that's how we're getting our incoming appraisers.
That's how you're getting the new ones moving here from another place into to kind of fill in the void that's here.
But there are some trainees, but they're limited.
But they're limited, you got to be able to replace what you're, what you're doing, right? I mean, that's the
most of the lenders will not allow the trainees to do the inspection by themselves because they might overlook something that might really screw up the value.
Tell Trevor and I how you're paid and what appraisers are paid. I have no idea. Do you know, Trevor? I have no idea what an appraiser is paid.
Typically for our buyers, they pay like a $500 fee for an appraisal.
$500, and the bank pays that usually.
No, it comes out of the buyer's closing costs.
Okay.
That appears to be rather typical. That when the appraisers average out, that they're the ones that I surveyed, they said, our average assignment fee is about
$500 for an appraisal. Okay.
Yeah, and if they under these real strict times are doing somewhere around 200 to 250 appraisals
in a year. Okay.
And then they've got one half or full-time clerical worker. They've got all their expenses, licensing errors and omissions.
Yeah.
All the MLS fees, all the realtor fees.
Yeah.
The continuing education fees, etc. So you as a realtor understand how that self-employed thing really attacks your gross income.
Wow. So that's
and I have to remind you that these people are operating, in my opinion, at almost twice what is normal.
And how long does it take you typically to do a residential appraisal, for example, or someone?
Well, since I'm not really in that game, but when I look at other people, they're saying that generally they can do maybe 250 a year, and so they're working 70 to 80 hours a week to do this, and they've got some clerical support behind them. I believe that they probably have camera in hand and measuring tape in hand and all the paperwork, probably about 10 acres or 10 acres, probably about 10 hours.
10 hours.
And what we need to remember is when you're running a business, it's not just the appraisal. You have to field the phone calls. You have to network. You have to do all of these other things as well. And so 10 hours of work might get a 14-hour day.
Well, it seems like
if they were trying to kick one out in a day.
It seems like, Trevor, that the appraisers are going to kind of continue to go as they are here for a while, but there's certainly nothing. The biggest issue seems like there's not being new people coming, but it's a competitive business, and you have that catch-22 if I train somebody
there
new.
certainly is no quick fix here.
Because I'm listening to you. Man, I don't know if I would want to be an apprentice. I mean, I think because the hours. That means it takes years to get that. It seems,
I asked an interesting question of the appraisers that I spoke with, and I said, would you advise family members or friends to go into the business? And 85% of them said no.
Oh, wow. Well, that tells a lot right there, doesn't it?
That says it all.
We're going to have to revamp the appraising world, aren't we? That may be our new mission.
That's right.
What we can do. Hey, we're with Trevor Boucher and Mark Baird here on the Real Estate Show today, talking about appraising and the local real estate market. We've got a break coming up here on KMED, and we're coming right back. Hey, right after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED. December the 10th is our date. Pete Belcastro here with you. Don't forget, you can check out any of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com. We're also on YouTube. You can check them all out there. It has some terrific past shows on historic preservation of buildings, and there's lots of good topics out there. Next week, we'll talk about mortgage interest rates. They're kind of climbing, aren't they, Trevor Boucher? Is that true? Oops, I'm sorry. Oops, sorry, guys. Sorry.
Are you cutting me out?
Yeah,
Pete?
I was.
What's going on here?
Yeah, wrong button. Is that they're going up, aren't they, a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say about a half percentage point here in the last couple months.
That's that's one of those things that we keep saying. If those interest rates go up too high, the train is over for a while.
Right, on a $200,000 mortgage, that's roughly $60 a month.
Yeah, so it's and we'll see what happens with that. But we've still been lucky so far. Anyway, Mark Baird is here also. Mark's an appraiser.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that.
All right, go ahead. Absolutely.
And that's part of the reason that I think that this may be temporary, because if we've got people that were quite willing to refinance when the rates were at 3.6, how are they going to feel when they're 4.2?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so that 61% part of the market that's refi for the appraisers.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that the refi market has hit that level of you say 60% almost of the pending kinds of transactions are refinances, and all have to have an appraisal. That's a lot. Can you consider there were 700 real estate transactions in Jackson County in a 3-month period?
So, Mark, you said that for your average appraisal, there's roughly 10 hours total that goes into it. How much would that compare to a refi?
Ooh, good question.
It doesn't matter whether it's a refi or a purchase. There's very little difference with the purchase. The appraiser gets a little clue as to maybe where with the sales price, because they get a copy of the earnest money agreement. The people that go into a refi go into it blind, because they're not allowed to say that where that number should be on a refi. So there should not be any difference between whether it's a refi or whether it's a purchase, in my opinion.
So the process is the same. I mean, you do the same inspection.
Yes, and it's market value. The lenders have certain qualification criteria of the borrowers and of the property and of the appraisers.
Yeah,
they're the same for across the lines in general.
What's the hardest part when you do an appraisal? What is the most difficult thing that you look at or you can't find, or that you have a difficulty reconciling with when you do an appraisal in general?
I think the most difficult part is to try to find comparable properties when we've got that unique bird out there that we're trying to appraise. Maybe it's the 6,000 square foot house outside of Talent on top of the hill.
A log home would be something like that.
And other issues. It's like maybe you've got 3 homes on one property, and one is the main home and the other 2 are ancillary. Not only do you have to value it in a credible manner, but you need to convince the lender that it's typical to the area, if it is, so that it'll meet the lending qualifications. Because in general, the federally related transactions that you and I are referring to typically have guidelines that, hey, we want the most typical houses in the area. That's why we're offering low interest rates. We don't want the white elephant where it's very high value or very unique.
I know you do a lot of commercial appraising. Is that mostly refinancing of these buildings, or is it new purchases of commercial properties that you're seeing around the county?
I do most of my work with estates.
Okay.
And so most of my work comes from private people and attorneys and accountants.
So you would appraise an estate, like a parents die or something. You would appraise those kinds of properties for the heirs and things like that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm quite diverse, because when an estate comes at you, it might have a single family home, a cabin at Lake of the Woods, and a motel in Cave Junction.
Could be it could
and
be
some subdivision land in Eagle Point.
Yeah.
I'll take the cabin at Lake of the Woods.
Yeah, I bet you've seen all sorts of strange estates, haven't you, over the years?
Absolutely.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
can imagine what some of those might be like. But anyway, that's people find themselves in all sorts of situations, and you got to know what the value is, and so they would call you to do that. Yeah.
One of the interesting things right now is the marijuana grows that are out there. When we have to do it for a state, we have to do it as it was when the person died. And if that marijuana was on the property, it's illegal.
Okay.
And so
how are you evaluating that?
Yeah, how do you evaluate it?
Or what if it is legal? And then how do you value that?
Legal here.
It is not legal here because it's illegal federally, according to the people that promulgate the rules down to us from the United States.
So how are you appraising that?
We need to appraise it as if the illegality were removed.
Okay.
Quite oftentimes you might have a house where it's got an illegal deck that might have to be removed.
Okay.
Well, we could just say, let's hypothesize and say that the 10 marijuana plants in the yard are gone. That makes it legal. Can it be done? Yeah. So if it's illegal, does it have any value? No. It's an implement. It's a crop. We can get it to go away.
Aren't the topics, Trevor Boucher, interesting? That we just look at all the different things that we just learned from Mark today. Wow,
I'm certain this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I'm sure it is too. Before we run out of time, I just want to acknowledge that Trevor and Gina Boucher you guys are board members of the Medford Earth Angels Foundation that we have with John L. Scott, the agents run. That's a unique thing, isn't it? It's really cool. I know you're doing a lot of stuff this Christmas here.
Well, Medford Earth Angels, Gina and I are both on the board, have been for about 3 years now. Honored to help serve our community and help people in need. The focus of that charity is children, and typically we focus on children that will slip through the cracks. And so the biggest thing we do every year is we provide 48 complete Christmas dinners. It turned out to be 2 full boxes of groceries, includes frozen turkey, a pie from Costco, all the trimmings.
Lots of good stuff.
And then in addition to that, we do a wrapped gift for each child in the family. We do that for 48 families every year. And a lot of those families are not only they're just families in need, but a lot of them are also injured veterans.
Well, that's really good work. And how many of you are on the board of that?
I think it's about 6.
So just a few of you that do all that kind of great work. So that's pretty rewarding.
It is, and there's no administration fees. Yeah. So all of us volunteer our time. Yeah. So 100% of any donations go directly to helping people here locally.
Can't beat that, right?
Would we get a hold of you, Trevor, if we wanted to donate some time or some money or
you
contribute somehow?
Get in touch with myself or my wife at our website, teamboucher.com, or the Medford Earth Angels Foundation has their own site, medfordearthangel.com.
All right, that'll do it. Hey, good for you, and good luck with that. It's the holiday season, and again, isn't it cool when you do something nice for somebody else? You just feel better.
The best way to help yourself is to help somebody else.
Absolutely. Great works from that. Mark Baird, nice to visit with you. Trevor Boucher as well. Good luck to you in your endeavors out there in the real estate world. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show here on December the 10th. Pete Belcastro here. Have a great week, everybody. God bless you all, and we'll see you next Saturday right back here on the Real Estate Show.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only real estate show on KMED. And thank you for making the Real Estate Show part of your weekend.